Who do most people think of when the movie Nightmare Before Christmas is mentioned?
Oh yeah, that's the movie that Tim Burton made.
I love Tim Burton!
Duh, it was directed by Henry Selick.
Indeed, The Nightmare Before Christmas was directed by Henry Selick, among many other films directed by the Cal Arts graduate. Born in the small town of Glen Ridge, New Jersey, Selick was like any other kid, always drawing instead of paying attention in school. But when his drawings attracted attention from his peers, he shrunk back into the shadows and ended his early drawing career by the age of 12. Unlike the other children around him who spent their time watching the typical Disney classics, Selick was drawn to the darker types of animation, like the Disney version of Sleepy Hollow and a German silent animated film by Lotte Reiniger, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed.
Yeah, and he was also influenced by the nightmares he got about the Cyclops from Ray Harryhausen's The Seven Voyages of Sinbad.
To keep away from the attention his art brought, Selick turned his attention to music and joined a band in high school, but his drawings would eventually come back to him. After watching a PBS special about experimental films, Selick's interest in art and animation was reignited.
In college, Selick switched from his original major in science to follow his passion for animation. He enrolled in Cal Arts, where he first met Tim Burton. He and Burton were a part of the first group to go through the Disney Character Animation program. While at Cal Arts, he created 2 award-winning student films called Phases and Tube Tales.
When he graduated, Selick went on to be an animator with Disney and worked on Disney's classics like The Fox and the Hound and Pete's Dragons. And he created the alien creature in Disney's The Watcher in the Woods.
Selick's first solo project was a stop-animated short called Seepage. Although the film won a few awards, he eventually went back to work with Disney.
His own production company called Selick Projects. Now it's called Twitching Images. He was even the one who created the Pillsbury Doughboy character.
Want a bigger bang out of your next birthday? Funfetti cake and frosting comes with colorful sprinkles you put on.
It's an explosion of color.
Nothing says lovin' like Funfetti.
And some video shorts for MTV when it still played music.
And that's how he was found for the bigger movies like Nightmare and Coraline.
Speaking of Coraline, stereoscopic imaging is a technique for creating an illusion of depth by presenting 2 offset images to the left and right eye of the viewer. The 2 different views come together to appear as one, much like your eyes record what you see to your brain. Coraline is the first ever stereoscopic stop-motion animated film. It's based on the book by Neil Gaiman and was even nominated for an Academy Award, a BAFTA, and a Golden Globe, all for Best Animated Feature.
In an interview, Selick said that it was very difficult to get the look of the film right. Light and be translucent, so that light could pass through them. He wanted them to be in scale with the puppets, instead of the heavy and clunky things you often get in stop-motion animation.
Yeah, and his artistic style is everywhere in his films. Sometimes you just have to look for it. The scene in Coraline where she's crawling through the tunnel into the world is almost exactly like the scene in Nightmare when Jack Skellington falls through the tree into Christmastown. In the early 90s, Selick took up the project Slow Bob in the Lower Dimensions, which combined live action, stop animation, and cutout animation. The success with the film led Selick to take on the full-length stop-motion film The Nightmare Before Christmas, which featured the character of Skellington.
Nightmare Before Christmas was a Tim Burton film, though, wasn't it?
Oh golly, here we go again.
No, seriously. It's called Tim Burton's The Night Before Christmas.
The idea for Nightmare came from the 3-page poem by Tim Burton, but the idea was never picked up by Disney. Eventually, Disney gained the film rights to the movie, so Burton and Selick began on what would become a classic among kids and adults alike. As Burton had directing obligations to Batman Returns, Selick was asked to be the director for Nightmare. While Burton and Danny Elfman created the storyline for the film, it was Henry Selick that gathered the animators for the production. When asked about the set design of the film, Selick stated, "The production design is akin to a pop-up book. When we reach Halloween Town, it's entirely German expressionism. When Jack enters Christmas Town, it's an outrageous Dr. Seuss-esque set piece. Finally, when Jack is delivering presents into the real world, everything is plain, simple, and perfectly aligned."
And when asked about the direction of the film, Selick reflected, "It's as though Burton laid the egg, and I sat on it and hatched it. He wasn't involved in a hands-on way, but his hands in it. It was my job to make it look like a Tim Burton film, which is not so different from my own films. As the film was released under Burton's name, audiences assumed that it was Tim Burton who directed the film, or was it just a brand name thing? Disney just released the film as being Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas to gain an audience."
Oh, I got you. That's just one big misconception then, isn't it? So, in short, Henry Selick is the unrealized genius behind the curtain.
Yep, pretty much. He paved the way for stop-motion films and further improved the art of claymation.
And what did Santa bring you, honey?